Hi everyone, welcome to PCS 101. I'm the instructor, Lillian Ruiz, and this is for summer session 2. Let me apologize in advance. I have a terrible head cold right now, but hopefully this is going to be something that is short-lived. Nevertheless, what I wanted to do today was to review the syllabus and the course outline. You may already know that Moodle has been updated. So if you are not familiar with Moodle, Moodle is the learning management system that we use at Greenfield Community College. They updated it yesterday. It's very intuitive, but in the notes below, I have included an instructional video about some of those updates in the event that you wanted to see them. And you'll note that there are several tabs at the top of our Moodle site under General. One is entitled Syllabus and Other Documents, and that's where I've uploaded our syllabus and also other documents for the class, what I would have given you as a paper handout in effect. And this is what I'm going to be reviewing today, the syllabus and other documents. Due dates, and the due dates are included in the syllabus and other documents, but I wanted to have one separate section that just listed out the due dates. Past class sessions. So what you will be able to access is the current week. After that week has come to an end, I will put that week in the folder for past class sessions. You can access it at any time that you like, but what you will be able to see on the Moodle site is our current week. Discussion forum. So I try to run my online classes as closely as possible to what I would do with an in-person class. So these videos are supposed to be the informative part of the class where I would be giving you information. The discussion forums are the second part of the class where you would be interacting with me and your classmates. And I'll talk about all of these further in greater depth in a few minutes. And then there is an optional chat. You're not required to chat with me or your classmates, but if you wanted to, I wanted to leave that possibility open. And the same with Zoom, so you can find my Zoom information there. And you can see that you can access our first week, which is today. Now, that said, our class would normally meet in person on Monday or on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And obviously, the semester begins on a Monday. So I wanted to have this video uploaded by Monday, Sunday night, in fact, so that those of you who wanted to get a sense of the course could do so sooner rather than later. But basically what I plan to do is to upload a video and course material by every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 a.m. I'm going to try to do it the night before, but certainly by 9 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, as if we were meeting in a live person situation. Your job would be to watch that video and to answer its corresponding attendance question or discussion forum question, which I would count as attendance for that particular class. And you can see that for today's topic, it's purely introduction. I wanted to review the syllabus and the course outline. I personally prefer paper, so you might want to actually print up the syllabus and the course outline, which is in syllabus and other documents folder, though it's up to you. And you can see that I have attached PDFs in that section that you can download, but I've also included the text in the body of that section in the event that you couldn't open the PDF. Do note when and if it turns out that you look at the Moodle updates and some of the new bells and whistles with Moodle, I don't use the grading book for Moodle, so basically, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, but if you're looking for your grades on Moodle through the gradebook, you won't find it because I'm not using the grading book. So first I'm going to talk about the syllabus. And as you are probably aware, this is a condensed class. Summer classes are highly condensed. We do the equivalent of an academic semester in half the time. One class is the equivalent of a week. So keep that in mind. That's both good and bad, because by the ending of 8 weeks, you would have completed a semester. But by the ending of today, you would have completed your first week. And basically, my first week is just introduction, where I review the materials and get everybody settled in before we can actually begin the course proper itself. So you can see that this class is being held on Moodle. and I am the instructor, Lillian Ruiz. Most people call me Lillian. I'm pretty informal. Whatever you feel comfortable calling me is fine. My email is there, and note that my email address is my surname, but there is no first initial there. When I started at GCC 30 years ago, believe it or not, they had and universally instituted the email system. In other words, this was in the very early prehistoric days of email when addresses were distributed without first initials. That ended rather shortly because of the possibility for confusion. But if you ever see a GCC email address without a first initial, you can bet that that person has probably been around for a while. My phone number is there. Now, I'm not on campus this summer, but certainly I will be checking my phone messages so that you can leave me a phone message if you wanted to. My office is in North 328A, but again, I won't be on campus this semester. So technically there are no office hours for summer courses, but certainly if you wanted to meet with me, we can make arrangements to meet either via Zoom or a chat room or by telephone or all of the above if you'd like. I try to be as accessible as possible. There is a textbook for this class, which sometimes surprises people. I need a book about public speaking. It talks about the discipline of communication, so it lays a foundation. This, as a 101 class, introduces terms and so forth. It also gives you some good suggestions on how to go about putting together a speech. Now, the edition that I believe the bookstore has is the 18th edition, which is an older edition by German. I don't care which edition you use. There's very little difference between one edition to the next edition. So if you can find an edition that's earlier or later that is less cost prohibitive, feel free to do so. I'm sure you're more aware than I am of all of the electronic and online sources that you have for finding textbooks. And we will basically do most of the textbook reading up front at the beginning of the semester. Do note that there is a copy of our textbook on reserve in the GCC library, so you could access it through the reserve desk that's at the front desk of the GCC library. You just ask for the text. You can't take it out of the library, but yes, you can read it, you can copy it, you can take pictures of it. And it's assumed that students will have a good dictionary at the source for reference, which I suppose just about everybody does with their computers. But having something for reference and using it can be two very different things, as I suggest to my English classes. I mostly teach English classes, but I also teach some public speaking and some media classes as well, including a class that you might have heard of through the grapevine, media and horror film, that I'll be teaching next semester. So I'm a firm believer in applying academic principles to media and popular culture. But at any rate, I put this note on all of my syllabi, regardless of the class I'm teaching, that it's good to have a good dictionary at the source. Probably less important for this class because of the public speaking element. And I know that might seem a bit odd too, that we are doing a public speaking class online. Trust me, it was odd to me too before COVID. That said, considering how the world has changed and how much of our electronic communications are dependent on being able to communicate with audiences through the workplace or through our personal lives via the internet, that I think that this is just a natural progression and is just as useful of a skill as actually speaking live. And I'm not even talking about the people who devote their lives to becoming influencers. If you had told me 5 years ago that I would be making a video of this class and presenting it to you online, I never would have believed it. And yet, that is the reality since COVID. So what I'm doing is something similar to what you are going to be doing when you deliver your speeches. If we were meeting in person, obviously, you would deliver your speeches in person to the class. We're not meeting in person, so I'm going to ask you to record your speeches and then to post them on our Moodle site so that your classmates can view them and give their feedback on those speeches. So again, it's a somewhat different kind of experience than giving a live speech, but again, it also is probably a more useful experience considering the way technology is moving in our society. But more on the speeches in a moment. I wanted to talk about the course description that's on the syllabus. Then this is from the course catalog, that we study the principles of public speaking as communication, stressing the role of the speaker in the communication process. The course emphasizes the proper preparation and delivery of speeches. Each student delivers a minimum of 5 speeches and participates in small group activities. So I consider our discussion forum questions small group activities. There is a prerequisite that you've taken English 101 or what we call Composition 1, or you have concurrent enrollment in that. So if you think you haven't met that prerequisite, please let me know. So now I'm on the learning outcomes element of the syllabus, that as a result of successfully completing this course, students will be able to, 1, improve oral communication skills. Obviously, you all have oral communication skills and written communication skills. And the goal is not to teach you these skills, but to teach you to refine these skills. To develop skills and self-confidence in acquiring and presenting information. Sometimes you already know what it is you're going to be talking about, so it's just a question of putting that together. Sometimes you need to do research, and we'll be doing a little bit of both and talking about how you can incorporate research into a speech, which is a somewhat different process than when you incorporate research into, let's say, a paper. To develop skills and self-confidence in presenting and acquiring information. To apply critical and analytic thinking. Those are catchphrases you oftentimes see in education. Critical isn't necessarily criticism. It's asking questions. The most common question being why. Something that I think toddlers ask quite well, that I think we get out of the habit of asking as we become adults. So maybe it's not something that we have to learn, but perhaps it's something that we have to relearn that we once knew how to do. I've often said that was the difference between high school and college. High school is learning what, college is trying to determine why. Number 4, to promote a greater understanding of communication in formal and informal settings, that the situation and the environment will dictate how you present yourself. And 5, to promote each student's unique sense of voice. You shouldn't sound like me or the textbook, you should sound like you. Your personality really is your strongest element, because what audiences are looking for is sincerity. So, under the procedure section, as I had alluded to earlier, I will post a video of myself, much like this one, discussing class material by the time our class would normally meet in person, which would be Tuesday or Thursday at 9 a.m. So, for all intents and purposes, I suppose you can believe that we meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 a.m., if that helps you organize your time. And then you have 48 hours from that time, the Tuesday or the Thursday at 9 a.m., to watch that class video and answer its corresponding question in the discussion forum. I will count that as our attendance, if you will, much like as if you were raising your hand in class. And if you need an extension, please feel free to ask me for more time. Your answer on the class discussion forum is your attendance for the class. So basically, there is no evaluative element outside of the fact of whether you've done it or not. And I'm actually going to offer you the option of not necessarily even replying to your classmates. You are required, however, to read all of your classmates' responses. And as you will soon find out, I will respond to all of you in turn. So you should read your classmates' responses and my responses. And if you're moved to a response, much like you might be if you were in a live classroom, then certainly do so. You will submit written quizzes. There are 4 quizzes about a quarter of the way through each of the pieces of the semester based on the textbook readings and the class videos. They are open book, open notes. They will each be 20 questions, mostly a mixture of some short answer with perhaps some multiple choice or some true false. You will submit your written quizzes, and I'll discuss those a little bit more as the semester progresses, to my email via PDF. This is how my grading program works best. And then I will return the graded quizzes to your email. As I indicated, I'm not using the grade book, but I will return all of your assignments to you, as if we were in a live class. Procedures would be these videos, this class discussion, or this class video that I'm doing, which would be seen as a kind of mini lecture, I suppose. Class discussion and group work, which is what I see the class discussion forums being. The quizzes I was mentioning, and finally, speeches. And you will have 3 formal speeches over the course of the semester. One will be an informative speech, or one will be an autobiographical speech, and that will be at the beginning of the semester. You will have 5 minutes to tell the audience about yourself. The second graded speech will be the informative speech, 10 minutes, and you are tasked with teaching us about something and also using an audio or a visual. And the third speech, 15 minutes long, persuasive speech, where you're trying to convince us to take a position or an action, and you are using and citing at least 3 outside sources. And again, I'll talk about all of these more in greater depth. I just wanted to give you a holistic view. And if you were looking under course requirements in the syllabus, you'd see that, well, basically you're expected to complete all reading and writing assignments by the due date. I can tell you right now how to be successful in this class. Do the readings assigned, watch the videos, answer the discussion questions, and basically do the assignments. And keep in mind that this is not a class in editing. This is a class in public speaking. We don't expect the perfect speech. I don't expect you to edit your speech. In fact, I do not want you to edit your speech multiple times and splice together a final version. It should be one shot, just like my class videos are one shots. And yes, there might be some errors, but if you were speaking in public, you would be under the same criteria. So, again, the idea is not whether or not you've made an error, but it's how you've addressed that particular error. So, 3 graded speeches with practice sessions will be assigned. Basically, I wanted to be able to touch base with each of you individually about your speech and how it was going. I call that a practice session. You can spend as much or as little time with me as you'd like. It could be as brief as sending me a quick email about what your speech topic is, or it could be, let's say, a Zoom call where you actually present your speech to me before you actually post it onto the Moodle site, and I give you feedback, and anything in between. So I consider those speeches as well, but they are ungraded, and it's your decision to decide how much or how little to utilize those practice sessions for each of the 3 graded speeches. First being the autobiographical, second being informative, third being persuasive. Failure to deliver a speech assigned on the date assigned will result in failure for the assignment unless the student has unforeseeable emergency and justifiable reasons based on the evaluation of the instructor. Keep in mind your classmates are going to need to have time to view these speeches and to give their feedback to me about them. So, just like if you were presenting live, then you certainly wouldn't want to disappoint your audience by not appearing. Obviously, accidents can happen, and emergencies can happen, but the reality is that you want to try to keep to the dates as much as possible, because it would be disrespecting your audience. And again, your audience needs enough time to be able to absorb your speech. Half of the class is delivering the speech, yes. The other half is listening to the speeches of others and learning from those speeches, serving as audience, in effect. As I indicated, periodic quizzes, 4 quizzes over the course of the semester, about a quarter of the way through. And I will drop the lowest quiz grade, so if it turns out that you need to miss a quiz or you do poorly, we can drop that grade. Or if you elect to drop the last quiz because you are content with your first 3 quiz grades, you can see that as a bit of an opportunity that you would have to end the semester a little bit earlier. So there are generally no makeup quizzes because you have that option of dropping the lowest quiz grade. The Institutional Services Disability Statement, which you might have heard of before if you're taking other classes at GCC. GCC values inclusion and equal access to its programs and activities. Is committed to fostering an environment of respect and full participation. Our goal is to create learning environments that are equitable, inclusive, and welcoming. If there are aspects of the instruction or design of this course that result in barriers to your inclusion or accurate assessment or achievement, please notify the instructor as soon as possible. If you are a student with a disability and may need reasonable academic accommodations, please contact the Office of Disability Services as soon as possible to discuss your needs and options. And for more information, you can see that I've included a web link as well as a phone number. So under the speeches section, you'll see an overview of what it is we're going to be doing this semester. We will examine the following principles of speech delivery. Number 1, discovering and limiting the topic. Number 2, adapting to the audience. Number 3, gathering information. So think about this, discovering and limiting the topic. Sometimes you already know what you want to talk about, and it's just a question of making it fit into the time. An interesting phenomenon is that oftentimes at the beginning of the semester, students are concerned about having enough content to fill the time. At the ending of the semester, it's the exact opposite, that they're afraid that they won't be able to fit everything into the time. Sometimes you don't know the topic, and then you need to basically discover it. For us, it'll be kind of half and half. You do know that the topics are autobiographical, informative, and persuasive, but those are very general. The specifics are up to you, which we will work on together as the semester progresses. Adapting to the audience. And you already know who your audience is. It basically is made up of your peers and myself. This is our public speaking class. So already you can make certain assumptions about the audience in terms of age and education, which can be quite useful. Gathering information. Again, you may not need to find information, you can just present. But if you do need to gather information, we will be talking about that at the ending of the semester because your third speech will require you to use outside resources. So how do you find those resources, and how do you document those resources in the context of an oral rather than a written situation? Organizing and outlining, the most important part of your speech, which is usually hidden. People don't get to see all of the work that goes on ahead of time. In fact, you are going to be required to develop outlines for the autobiographical, informative, and persuasive speech and submit them in to me so that I can give you some feedback. Normally, you wouldn't show anybody your outline. And in fact, there's an entire textbook section that's based on developing outlines. But I wanted you to have the experience of practicing outlines. You want to avoid the extremes. You want to have enough in your outline so that it will help you if you need to find your place because you have forgotten where you're going. But you don't want so much information that you can't find anything at all because you're overwhelmed. So in some ways, it's very different than what I call a written outline, or what you do for an outline for a paper, because basically what you do for a paper is to try to get as detailed as possible. You don't need to do that in a speech. You want basically ideas, not necessarily clear sentences, or not necessarily complete sentences. You just want major points to remind you of what it is that you're going to be talking about on an outline, a speaking outline that you may not ever even look at because you're so well prepared that you don't need to look at it. I kind of liken it to the trapeze artist uses, that no matter how skilled that trapeze artist is, he should still have that net just in case there's an accident. And I would say the same for your outline. Even if you don't need it or use it, it should still be there just in case of an emergency. But the text will talk about this, and I'll talk about this further as well. Developing an acceptable style, suiting purpose and occasion, and adapting yourself to the audience and to the expectations of the environment you're in. Practicing and presenting the speech, which you will be doing by touching base with me, and also by uploading your speech onto Moodle, so you will be recording your speeches. And most students, I believe, have recording equipment on their phones. I actually use my cell phone to record these, so you don't need to have any particular fancy equipment. I recommend that what you do is that you upload your videos to YouTube, and then you can post them onto Moodle, which is what I will be doing for this class, and I will be talking about that in greater depth later. And active listening, responding to the speeches of others, listening to your classmates' speeches, and giving feedback to me about those speeches. Basically, I'll just be asking you to send me one strength and one weakness of each of your classmates' speeches, but that means you need to watch all of your classmates' speeches and evaluate them. Then I'll compile all that data and present it to the class as a whole afterwards. So grading. I'm now at the grading section on our syllabus. These are approximate percentages. Participation, which I call those discussion forum questions. And, of course, watching the class videos. That's about 10% of the class. Attendance and class assignments, so forth. 10% are those outlines. You'll be doing an outline for your autobiographical speech, your informative speech, and your persuasive speech. I will be asking you to submit that in to me. I will be evaluating it very informally on a checkmark system. where A plus is excellent, check plus is very good, check is satisfactory, check minus is less than satisfactory, a minus is unsatisfactory. So basically, slow and steady wins the race, as I like to say when it comes to public speaking. And again, in the real world, you wouldn't even be showing your outlines to anyone, but I did want to be able to give you some feedback. And also, what I wanted to be able to do was to make sure that you had practice delivering speeches. So, 10% for your outline, 20% for speech number 1, the autobiographical speech, 20% for speech number 2, the informative speech, 20% for speech number 3, the persuasive speech, 20% for those quizzes after I've dropped the lowest grade. That should equal 100%. For an A, excellent, a B, good, a C, satisfactory. Yes, there are letters that follow A, B, C, but I prefer not to address them this early on in the semester so that we can just focus on A, B, C. So, as we continue talking about speeches, note that, and it's never been an issue, that each speech is the equivalent of an examination. Both the presenter and the audience should treat it with the appropriate respect. Inappropriate disruptions will be negatively reflected in your final grade. Again, it's never been an issue, but I thought it had to be said. If you want to consult with me, again, you can make an appointment with me. And class attendance, basically the way that I view class attendance and discussion is through your discussion forum responses. So absences and tardiness will be negatively reflected in your participation grade. Excessive absences could even result in failure. And as I had said, in addition to the 3 speeches, you're required to give outlines for all 3 speeches, evaluated as excellent, plus, good, check plus, satisfactory, check, less than satisfactory, check minus, unsatisfactory, minus, as well as your performance and these informal graded practice sessions as well. I'm going to skip the plagiarism section because I wanted to start up next class with that. And what I wanted to do was to move forward to our course outline, which is another document in the syllabus and other documents folder. You'll see I've laid out the dates of the semester and what we should be doing on each of those dates, with a couple of caveats that dates and assignments may be subject to change, and that reading should be completed before the dates indicated, because this is giving you an idea of what it is I'll be talking about in class during that date. So you'll see with week 1 now under the 18th for July. Again, I recommend you print this up. I would do that just so that I could have a hard copy, but it's up to you. On 7/18 is introduction. So it's just basically my introducing myself and talking about the class, syllabus, and outline. If at all possible, by Thursday, if you could have the first 3 chapters read. Chapter 1, Speech and Higher Education. Chapter 2, Getting Started. Chapter 3, Critical Listening. I didn't give pages because I know you might be using different editions. And as I had indicated, there is an edition on reserve in the GCC library if you so wanted to access that. If you can have those read by Thursday, don't panic, because I understand people are still adding and dropping, working on getting their textbooks and so forth. So you can still participate even without reading those chapters. But I do expect that by our second week, you are all set to go. And as I indicated, we're doing most of the textbook up front. So on the 25th, we're doing Chapter 7. I'm talking about Chapter 7, which is Organizing and Outlining Speeches. Chapter 8, Beginning and Ending Speeches. And Chapter 9, Wording Speeches. And then on the 27th, I'm talking about Chapter 10, Delivering Speeches. Chapter 4, Public Speaking and Cultural Challenges. And Chapter 5, Understanding Your Audience. Believe it or not, that would be the bulk of the textbook. When we get into our week 3, you'll see that on Tuesday, the 1st of August, you'll have your first quiz based on chapters 1 through 3 and 7 through 8 and class videos, 20 questions, some short answers, perhaps some multiple choice or some true-false. Open book, open notes, and that would be your class attendance for that class. So basically, you would have 48 hours to submit in that quiz. You also, at that point, would need to be contacting me to talk a little bit about your speech, whether or not you, in this practice session with me, you wanted to just basically run by the topic idea, or whether you actually wanted to deliver it and get feedback, or something in between. On the 3rd of August, if all goes well, everybody will be uploading speech number 1, autobiographical speech. On the 8th of August, we will be talking about our next speech, speech number 2, informative speech. And the way we'll do that is by talking about Chapter 6, finding and using supporting material, Chapter 11, using visual media, and Chapter 12, speeches to inform. On the 10th of August, Thursday, is where we have our second quiz, Chapters 9 and 10, Chapters 4 and 5, and again, another practice session where you would touch base with me in one way or another about your second speech, which, if all goes well, you will be uploading on the 15th of August, which is a Tuesday, speech number 2, informative. And then on the Thursday, the 17th, well, we'll talk about the last 2 chapters that are applicable to us. Chapter 13, speeches to persuade. Chapter 14, argumentation, critical thinking. That should help us with the persuasive speech that will be coming up. On the 22nd of August, Tuesday, you'll see that you have quiz 3. Chapters 11 through 12 and Chapter 6. Again, another practice where you touch base with me about your speech. If all goes well, we will all be uploading speeches on the 24th of August, which is a Thursday. That gets us into the last week of the semester. So on the 29th, which is Tuesday, we would have quiz number 4 on Chapters 13 to 14. Again, keep in mind I dropped the lowest quiz, so if you've done well with the first 3 quizzes, you can elect to drop that quiz. And I have one emergency class, the 31st. If we needed to meet, I don't think we will need to meet, but this is where everybody can finish up giving feedback to one another. And that's basically our semester. One other document that was in the syllabus and other documents folder is entitled Speech Rating. And it's a template for evaluating speeches that I will use for your first speech. I won't even use it for the second or the third. I'll just take notes of strengths and weaknesses. But you might want to look at that template now, because it talks about some of the concepts we will be talking about as the semester progresses. But I will be revisiting this as well. So what's left for this class is the attendance question, which is basically introducing yourself. So I'd like you to, and you can see this in the notes below, because I'll always have the class notes below the class video. And as I had indicated earlier, I've also got the instructional video on some of the changes that have been made to Moodle, if you wanted to view that. But today's attendance question is if you could briefly introduce yourself to the class. Feel free to submit pictures or audio, but not required. And you can see you can just click on the hyperlink for a discussion forum, and it'll take you right there. And you've got up until Thursday, because as I said, we normally meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So this class is technically supposed to be for Tuesday at 9 a.m., but I'm well aware that some of you might be trying to access this class as early as Sunday night. So I wanted you to be able to do that. But the next video you can count on Thursday at 9 a.m. If all goes well, I'll be able to post it the Wednesday night, but certainly by Thursday at 9 a.m., where we can begin to talk about the textbook and some of the upcoming assignments. So I hope you're well, and outside of a summer cold, I'm well, and we will meet next class, I should say, so to speak. Take care. Bye-bye.